Good morning, class members. I'm happy to deliver the second online lecture today. Our topic today shall focus on the four language skills. There are four major language skills, and these are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. These four skills help us to achieve mastery in our use of any language. But for the sake of our lecture this morning, our focus based on the course content is on reading. What is reading? Reading is one of the valuable skills that you need in acquiring a language or in language acquisition. Now, what is reading? Reading is simply defined as an art of visually sourcing for needed information in published books, printed materials, or written texts. I also need to help you understand that reading is a mental activity that requires, number one, processing, interpreting, and understanding of the materials being read. Some people, when they read, after they must have read for 31, 2, or 4 or 5 hours, and they get to the exam hall and see the questions. Some students claim that all they have read over the years, over the months, disappear from their brain, from their memory. Why? Because they do not have an understanding of what is reading. And that is why reading is also seen as a mental activity. It is not a physical activity. It's not something you do with your physical energy. It's something that requires absolute concentration. Because it must be, whatever information you are taking in must be processed before interpretation can take place in the brain naturally, before you can have an understanding of what you have read. So if you have read the material and you couldn't answer questions on the same material, it therefore shows that one of these mental activities has been altered. And that is why you need to pay attention to that. Because the primary focus of a reading activities is for readers to be able to obtain new or valuable information, interpret and understand the imported information. Now, let's go to what are the stages of reading? What are the stages of reading? There are two fundamental stages of reading: learning to read and reading to learn. The first stage is learning to read, which takes place at the early elementary classes, where the pupils are given formal instructions on word recognition and how to associate appropriate sounds to corresponding letters. This happens at the elementary stages, nursery, primary schools, where pupils are taught how to associate certain sounds to corresponding letters. You hear sounds like it, eat, so, so, and on. That is the first stage of learning to read. But the second stage is the advanced stage, which is titled reading to learn. It's an advanced stage where reading materials become more abstract and contain a higher number of technical vocabulary. At this stage, reading is necessary for, number one, fact finding; number two, research; number three, knowledge acquisition; and number four, self-development. When you are reading for to fulfill any of these reasons, it is known as an advanced stage of reading, which is reading to learn. Fact finding, research, knowledge acquisition, and self-development. So these are the two stages of reading: learning to read and reading to learn. What are the types of reading? There are two main types of reading. Because reading is an innate human nature, okay, there is this ability to learn, especially in schools. And for this learning to be successful, for you to have to increase your level of proficiency in reading, you need to have an understanding of these two basic types of reading. Number one is called extensive reading. Extensive reading. Extensive reading is what reader does when seeking when seeking general information on a particular subject. I repeat, extensive reading is what a reader does when seeking general information on a particular subject. The focus is to collect quickly pieces of information from diverse printed or written materials. the I used to have a boss. I used to work with a boss who will, for example, buy different dailies just to collect, just to capture the same, just to have an understanding of a news item. He will buy Guardian, The Punch. He will buy Daily Sun, almost four or five different dailies. Then one day I asked him why. He said simply because he likes to collect different information on the same headline, so that you can have a balanced story. This type of reading is called extensive reading. So it's an extension that goes beyond just a source. So it starts, a student reader can also adopt the same method. You don't just have to rely on your lecture notes or the textbook recommended to you by your lecturer. You should go out and look for other materials that will also help you to deepen your knowledge in that study. And that's when you adopt that kind of reading, it is known as extensive reading. The other one is intensive reading. From the word intensity, it is known as focused reading. Intensive reading takes longer time than the extensive reading. Why? Because it is slower, and it is a slower approach to reading. The reader only pays serious attention to every detail and information available in a particular material being read. There are some students who may say, I don't have that capacity to begin to go to the left, to the right to source for information. My lecture notes and the online class, online video and my textbook is enough. So when such student reader limit their source of information to narrow their source of information to these items, just the lecture notes, the online video, and the textbook recommended by the class and by the lecturer, it is known as intensive reading, because they are only interested in what? Intensity, not extension. Now, beyond these two types of reading, what are the factors that can enhance? If you have adopted whether extensive or intensive reading, there are still some factors that can help you achieve effectiveness in your reading. Number one is personal interest. You see, the chief among the factors is personal interest. Whether you are going to achieve effectiveness in your reading, number one is, do you have interest in what you are doing? Students with high expectations seems to learn to read better. Some students only read when there is an exam. When there is an exam or the exam timetable is out. Some students are driven by passion for reading achievement. They are not the same thing. Reading to pass an exam is not the same thing as reading for what? Reading to achieve something or to learn something. So when you are reading for personal development, or we have the desire for academic success, it's different from when you are just reading to pass an exam. So personal interest is the key factor in achieving what? Reading effectiveness. Number two, and conducive environment. The environment in which you read also will determine the effectiveness of your reading. The environment, so because the environment plays a significant role on reading achievement. So it is therefore suggested that you adopt a suitable environment for yourself. Number three is time. And time is also important. Some people's strength for reading is at its peak in the early hours of morning, while some people's strength for reading is at its peak at midnight, while others prefer daytime reading. All of this boils down to what? Personality. Then number four is total concentration. Some of us, distraction is our greatest barrier to effective reading. We have not achieved much just because we are always distracted, either by our phone, either by our study partner, or either by some physical distractions. We learn to take away physical distractions whenever you are reading. If you want to read, read. If you want to hang out, go and hang out. If you want to play, go and play. If you want to sleep, sleep. Some people will be reading and they will be dozing because they have not had enough rest. The next one is note taking. Jotting that main point on a separate sheet or note when reading is a creative way of achieving more during reading. Some of us don't know that whenever we go to read, we should also have a small jotter next to us where we can put down key points as we are reading, so that when it is time, we can always come back to revise using the same jotted materials. Now, what are the barriers to effective reading? Number one is finger pointing. Some of us, when we are reading, we are using our fingers to trade the words, to trade the individual words being read. It is not the best way of reading. It's a barrier to effective reading. Number two is head movement. Some people, when they are reading, they are moving their head to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. It is not the best way to read. Vocalization. Some people, when they are reading, vocalization is the act of whispering of words being read. So some people, when they are reading next to you, be hearing sound. This is not good enough. Regression. Some people, they have problem with their sight. When they are reading, it becomes very difficult to see clearly the words they are reading. So I advise you to, so they end up with regression. They keep going back and forth. The finger pointing is the act of finger pointing, so they keep going back and forth. So this is a bad way of reading. So if you need glasses, please go and see an ophthalmologist and get medicated glasses. Another barrier to effective reading is bad reading posture. Some of us, when we are reading, our legs are on the table while the books are on our hand. Some people are even fond of lying down on the bed when they are reading with their textbook. This is a bad reading posture. You will not achieve much. You will not be able to assimilate whatever you are reading. Another problem is inadequate rest. Some people, inadequate rest will not make your brain to settle for you to be able to assimilate enough information. Then the last one is restlessness. Some of us, we cannot just sit down in a place for 10 or 15 minutes. Our bum cannot sit down somewhere. So it's a deliberate act of, what is restlessness? It is a deliberate act of moving around when reading. Some people, they will be reading and they will be cooking. Some people, they will be reading and they will be going to the toilet to go and pee or to go and pee. So some people so their mind is always in a state of restiveness, which is counterproductive to effective reading. Now, there are methods of reading. This method of reading is SQ3R, SQRRR. Now, the S stands for survey. The first R stands for reread. The second R stands for recall, and the third one stands for review. Now, what is survey? Survey is what you do when you is what you do when you want to achieve purposeful reading. It involves finding valuable facts and key points from particular reading material. Then the second one is after you must have survey. So when you're surveying, you're asking the question what, where, when, who, and how. Because that is what, and to what extent, whatever you are reading. Then the next one is you ask those questions. You now ask questions, which is the cue. This involves asking yourself relevant and related questions based on what is being read. Then the next one is you reread. Reading and rereading the same material brings familiarity and easiness to what is being read. Then the fourth one is recall. This is the stage where essential points and specific details memorized in the textbook or notes are recollected from the memory. For instance, a reader should be able to recall definitions, specific dates, examples, characteristics, or formulas, or features, advantages and disadvantages, procedural methods of a subject matter. So it's a process known as recall. You should be able to recall even without the textbook or the notes with you or yes. Then the last one is review. This is what is expected. This is a critical approach to what a student has read. It involves reflecting on words and main point raised in materials you have read in the past for deeper understanding. I often say that during the exam period is the time for reviewing what you have read, not the time for reading. Some people give reasons that they cannot do certain things during exam period. Why? Because they are reading. No, it is wrong. Exam period should be a period of time where you should sit down and critically review what you have learned over the years. Over the months before the exam approaches. At this point, I want to end the lecture for today. Thank you. Drop your questions, as I often say, and I will respond to them on the platform. Thank you.